Cuando yo era niña, mi mamá me hablaba de su vida en El Salvador, de su familia, casa, escuela, amigos, vecinos. Una vida muy distinta de la vida que tiene aquí. Back then, I didn't understand why my mom decided to leave. El Salvador for her was much more than just a place. It was home to all her memories, to the people that she loved the most, and to the life that she had built. Coming to this country wasn't just about crossing a border. It was about sacrificing so much for the promise of a better life for her and her family. The ability to find the beauty in things around you is a gift. Growing up in the countryside with her grandmother from ages 5 to 14, my mom was captivated by the surrounding nature and animals. It was her choice to call this her home. The simplicity of this life was what she found beauty in. It was here where she wanted to be. No one could get her to stay in the city for an extended period of time. And yet somehow, she still wonders where I get my stubbornness from. Her grandmother wasn't just family. She was a guiding presence, a mother figure. Tears stream down my mother's face as she dwells in those childhood memories. My mom enjoyed going to school and got good grades. She even dreamed of becoming a teacher after being inspired by one. Even though her grandmother couldn't read or write, only being able to write her name, she encouraged my mom heavily to continue her education. Tienes que estudiar para no ser como yo, una analfabeta. These words echoed in my mother's head, pushing her to continue her education and value it too. Though her grandmother never had any formal schooling, she taught my mom something greater: how to be a good person. My mom worked hard to keep her promise. She worked to forward her own school supplies. But when she realized her father's income wasn't enough to sustain her family's basic necessities and education, she sacrificed her own so her siblings could finish theirs. As the eldest, she felt that this was her responsibility. My mom felt like a failure. Prior to her grandmother's passing, she promised her that she would do anything to continue her education. She had broken the promise to the person that she loved the most. Deep down, and still to this day, she hopes that wherever she is, she could see that this broken promise led to something good. Her siblings finished their education. That's who my mom has always been, putting others before herself. Los cambios cuestan ajustarse are the words my mother used to describe her transition from her old life to her new one in the U.S. Imagine leaving your home with nothing but a promise of a better life for yourself and your family. Home, so much more than just a place. Leaving her family behind was the hardest thing she's ever done, especially leaving her daughter. But after the death of her father, she knew that she had to make a decision that would affect the course of her life forever. In the back of her mind, she had a clear purpose: to give her mother and daughter a better life. She worked hard, sending money back home when she could. The journey from El Salvador to the United States was long and difficult. After many hardships along the land trip, she felt completely alone in this country. She was far from everything familiar, suffering along the way. But there was one thing that kept her motivated: the promise of a better future. There were many times when my mom thought about turning back and going back to all of the things that she loved and were familiar to her. But she reminded herself constantly of the goal, encouraging her to keep pushing forward. She knew the sacrifices she was making could change everything. Do you understand? These are the words that would make her feel horrible every time. The words that would constantly be repeated to her to the point that it was one of the only phrases that she could recite. My mom's first job was a factory job, the only job that had an opening after a month of searching desperately. This factory was also the place where my mom faced the most hardships. There was one time that her bilingual coworker went on break while she stayed back to clean a machine. When the boss arrived, he asked my mom to take an order, but my mom couldn't understand him, so she just shook her head. One moment is all she needed to find her coworker. Her frustration came from depending on others to translate just so that she could get her job done. It felt like a barrier that she couldn't overcome on her own. A barrier that I would also have to overcome eventually. It's the beginning of September, the time where complaints about early mornings start, endless homework, and an insane amount of traffic that tests every parent's patience. Due to my excitement, I had woken up much earlier than my alarm. As soon as I heard it go off, quite literally sprang out of bed and put on my favorite matching outfit. Soon, we were off to wait at the bus stop. I waited with anticipation for what seemed like hours, but reality soon kicked in when I saw a big yellow bus approaching. My excitement turned to anxiety real fast. Te va a ir bien, no estés nerviosa. The words that reassured me that everything would be okay as I climbed up the steps of the bus. Everything was new to me. The people, the building, the language. It became clear that the main language spoken was not Spanish. It was some sort of gibberish that they all seemed to understand. My classmates would approach one another and have conversations that just flowed. I envied that so much. When someone would talk to me in English, I would just stare at them while trying to somehow piece together what they just said. Sometimes they would repeat what they said previously in hopes that I would somehow understand them this time. Silence would fill the air so frequently, like that of a common language. They would soon give up altogether and walk away while I stood there in confusion, embarrassment, and most of all, a growing desire to make conversation flow. The longer I sat in class, the more out of place I felt. The sinking feeling in my stomach would only grow as recess came around. I felt invisible to those around me. As I dwelled in these feelings, the pit in my stomach grew heavier, and before I could stop myself, tears welled up in my eyes, making their way down my face. My mom would soon be called in efforts to stop my hysterical crying that was definitely not beneficial to anyone. With my mother's words through the phone, I was able to calm down and gain a little bit of confidence once again. Just enough to make it through the day without fully breaking down into tears. Once I got home, that, however, was a different story. I had locked myself in the bathroom full of embarrassment, defeat, frustration. I broke down sobbing repeatedly, yelling that I simply wasn't going to go ever again. But things didn't stay that way forever. I was placed in the Mineola ESL program, which stands for English as Second Language. This program was able to create a bridge between what I knew and what was new. At first, it felt impossible. Words would sound really similar, or some would sound different in their meanings. There were days that I wanted to give up, but my mom wouldn't let me. She reminded me that we all need to struggle. Nadie nace aprendido. Her words became a motivation, and little by little, English started making sense. What once felt like an unbreakable barrier became a door that I had learned how to open. With time, effort, my mom's encouragement, I didn't just learn English. I learned how to thrive. The person who once felt lost was now excelling in classes, earning 90s in subjects that once seemed impossible, competing in science competitions, and to my surprise, earning recognitions for my hard work. But to me, these accomplishments weren't grades or awards. They were proof that I had turned struggle into strength, that my parents' sacrifices were not in vain. Looking back, I realized that my first day of school wasn't just about stepping into a classroom. It was about stepping into a future that my parents could only dream of. The challenges, the moments of doubt, the pit in my stomach, they were all part of the journey that taught me the power of opportunity. My own personal education wasn't just given, it was fought for. And that is something that I will never take for granted. Thank you.